Hello, this is Cardine, and thanks for joining me on another conversation. Today, we're talking to business owners, and these are questions that we are going to cover that every business owner should ask themselves. The questions would surround how your business supports you and your family. What are your plans for business succession, business continuity, and also retirement? So let's dive right in. So, how will the business support you and your family? What are the plans that you have for the business? Is there something that you want to scale to a certain level? How do you plan to exit? How will it support your family? How do these plans that you have for your business coordinate with the plans that you have for your personal life? Is this something that you'd want to build and then step back with transferring management to others? These are some questions that you want to address. What are some of the events that could happen both in your personal and professional life that could impact your business negatively or positively? We do need to think of both scenarios. And would there be any financial concerns that you'd have for your finances, your future, as well as for your family? These are things that we need to consider when starting a business. How will it support you and your family? And what are the things that could happen both professionally and within your personal life that will impact how your business performs, scales, and supports you? Another question is in regard to your business succession planning. These are things that you do need to consider on how you'll transfer ownership. Some people create businesses with the objective of selling these businesses. Other people create business with the aim of passing this business on to their kids from one generation to the next. So when we're thinking, when we're starting a business, we do have to put considerations and strategies in place to ensure that our exit strategy, whether it be a sale or a transfer of ownership, that these are built into how we draft our shareholders agreement, how we fund our shareholders agreement, so we can actually take the steps necessary when the time comes for us to transfer ownership. There are certain things or triggers that could result in the need to transfer ownership. Yes, we can plan to transfer ownership in the future, but then there are other things that happen. So you have to consider transferring ownership, whether it be at retirement and also in the case of unforeseen events popping up in your business. So you ask yourself the question, if you or your co-owner were to die or become unable to work because of a critical illness or being disabled, how would this impact the business? What would happen to that person's or your interest in the business? How will it be paid out? Do you have a buy-sell agreement or provision inside of your shareholders agreement that deals with instances of death of an owner or permanent disability? How will these buyouts be funded? Are these methods the most tax efficient methods available to you? So these are some of the considerations that you do need to take into bear in mind when looking at your business succession plan. Do you plan to transfer it to your kids? What happens if one of the co-owners need to be bought out? How will that be funded without having to liquidate business assets, sell, or even be forced to close down? So we need to consider these options as well. The other thing that you need to consider is what are the risks that could imperil the continuation of the business. We look at certain areas, for example, corporate loans. Some business structures are highly leveraged. In these instances, you want to ensure that if something happens in your business, if your creditors call on your debt, or if you have personal guarantees in place to support your corporate debt, make sure there are instances or strategies in place that will prevent you from losing not only the business assets, but also your personal assets. If something should happen to an owner, whether they become critically ill, permanent disabled, or pass, what will happen to these debts? Will they be called? Would credit be restricted to the business because one of the co-owners and guarantors are no longer there? Will your personal estate be liable for these business debts? Right? So you do need to have strategies in place to cover these instances. Business overhead expense. Regardless of whether we're able to show up for work, in some businesses you have your rent to be paid, loans to be serviced, admin staff to take care of, utilities to pay. These are business overhead expenses that are there whether or not you make revenue. You need to have contingency plans in place to ensure that you can pay these even if you're unable to work. And you can get business overhead expense coverage. Some businesses have persons that operate in the business that are significant contributors to revenue. So these persons are considered key persons. If they leave the business, if they pass, their skill set would be difficult to replace, and revenue generation will be significantly impacted. You want to ensure that you have strategies in place that if a key person leaves or passes or becomes unable to work, you have something in place to replace that loss of revenue and also to help you transition, find the new skill set to replace the skill set that you've lost. So these are things that will impact your business, and you do have to plan for them. The other thing that you would want to consider is what kind of strategies you have in place to retain key skill sets. You do have to ensure that you have, the right remuneration package, the right incentives to keep your key persons engaged and willing to participate and work in your business. You have to retain these staff to ensure your business continue to operate profitably, and also to ensure that your expenses are covered in the case they become disabled, critically ill, or even pass. And if you do have to transition, that you have the funding to source these skill sets, also to cover your expenses during that transition period. While operating a business, there are certain things that you have to consider. How will you get paid? For example, how will you deal with excess cash in the business? There are multiple ways that you as an owner can get funds from the business to fund your lifestyle. It could be salary, it could be dividend, it could be interest on personal loans to the business. You have to consider these and making sure that they are tax efficient. There are also certain taxes that you have to consider that could apply either at transition of ownership, or a sale, or at certain points in the business. For example, capital gains tax, debt, final costs, equalization costs. You have to have funding strategies in place to support and cover all of these expenses when they pop up. It's not a matter of if, it's more a matter of when they occur. So are you engaged in tax planning, right? We have to consider not only the day-to-day, we do have to bear the end in mind as well. Ultimately, the goal when we work is to work enough so that when we decide to not work, we have sufficient funds to sustain our families, and our lifestyle. What is your plan for retirement? When you exit the business, how will you fund your lifestyle? Will you continue to work part time? Um, how will you access cash? Will it be from the business? What will happen if it's a sale of the business? How much of the proceeds will you have access to? After all, you'll consider capital gains tax. What happens if the value of the business goes down more than you anticipated? So you do have to have alternative strategies in mind to ensure that when the time comes, whether you when you choose to exit the business and retire, how will you fund your retirement? All of these questions, all of these contingencies that you can put in place to ensure your financial security and that of your business can be addressed with insurance. Your business can be impacted by unforeseen events, whether it be premature death, whether it be forced retirement, either due to a critical illness or a permanent disability. You will still have the need for money, right? And you do have to put strategies in place. So even though you're unable to work, you will still be able to have cash flow coming to you personally and into the business to ensure that it survives and that you survive. So consider, what are the risks to your business of premature death, of a critical illness, where you can't show up for work? How will your family survive, right? In the instance of a passing, how will the remaining owner pay out your share of the business to your family? How long will that process take? How will your family survive in the interim? These are all things that you have to consider. Some companies are owned by one person in the household. If you're a sole owner and your household relies on the income from that business, what will happen to your dependents, your spouse, your kids, if, for example, you're unable to work due to a critical illness, disability, or death? How will they be able to survive? Will they have the funds to secure your replacement skill set in the business so the business can continue? Will they be forced to go through the process of selling the business? Some businesses are pretty hard to sell. There's not necessarily a market for them, right? So there are not a multitude of buyers. So what will happen to your family in these instances? So again, I've breezed through a number of questions that you want to ask yourself. How will your business support your family? Will it be the sole source of income for you and your family? What happens, and if something happens to you personally or in the business, will you be able to continue to support your family? How will you transition ownership of the business? Do you have plans to sell it? What are the implications of a sale? There's a capital gains, etc., that you'll need to consider. What if you want to transition ownership to your kids? There's also tax implications and funding implications that you'll need to consider at these points as well. If you're in the business that is highly leveraged, a passing of an owner could significantly impact your credit worthiness to your lenders. They might choose to call the debt. They might choose to restrict your credit. What plans do you have in place to pay off debt or provide you with alternative funding? What about business taxes, capital gains, debt, equalization costs? These are all things that will need to be funded. And the best plan is to be proactive with your planning, incorporate certain tools into your strategies, into your business to ensure that these contingencies are taken care of. The options available to you can be owned personally or by your corporation. These include life insurance that will pay out if you pass prematurely, This way, the debt of the company could be paid off, any associated tax could be paid, and also there could be a payout that can benefit your dependents, your family as well. If you become disabled or critically ill that forces you out of the business and make you unable to work, you will still need money. What do you have in place? Consider getting corporately owned disability insurance, critical illness insurance. You can also put in place business overhead coverage so that you know your fixed cost, your contractual expenses are covered. You don't have to put yourself in a situation where you're forced to sell or close your business or even take on burdensome debt. Use the tools available to you to ensure that your family is protected, your business interest is protected, and that you can move forward confidently, scale your business into the future by covering these fallouts that might negatively impact your business. Also, it's not only about what could go wrong, but what could go right. Insurance provides an avenue for extracting cash from your business. So if you have revenues being generated over and above what you need to sustain the business and your family, you can pull cash out of your business into your insurance policy and also grow wealth there as well. If you want to explore these options some more, if you want help answering these questions and putting strategies or contingencies in place to make sure these are addressed, feel free to reach out to me at info@moneymattersca.com or call me at 647-951-6905. I am here to help you get on the path to financial success. Thank you. Bye.